You get this sense of you're in a place that's larger than yourself.
Stone Quarry Hill Art Park. It's in Cazenovia, New York. It's a 100-acre park that is involved with nature and art. In other words, there's art installed throughout the fields and the hills and the woods.
What's different about the art park is it's in our backyard. It's not New York City. It's not near a major metropolitan area. It's in Cazenovia, New York. It's in Madison County. It's a rural agricultural landscape.
This is just a beautiful, beautiful sight. The land is gorgeous. The views are amazing. The nature on the ground, the trees, the paths.
The art park, in a way, is like a lens to help us see relationships about people, culture, art, and the landscape. A lens that brings things in focus, or juxtaposes things, or helps to question things, magnify things.
An outdoor sculpture park is very unique in the art world, especially if you're used to going to an indoor museum to see art. An outdoor sculpture park allows you to interact with the art. It gives you a 360-degree opportunity to walk around.
Viewers traditionally experience a drawing or a painting not so much as an object in this world, but often as a window into another world. I mean, that has changed over time, where you really have a painting or a drawing just being what it is. When you encounter a sculpture, you're encountering it with your body. You know, you're literally in the same space. You are in the world in the same way. So I think it's obviously a more tactile experience, and, you know, it's a more physical experience.
When the art park was founded, the Artist in Residence program was founded almost synonymously with the mission of the art park. And that really speaks to Dorothy's vision. She wanted this place not just for her, not just for her work. She wanted it for other artists, and she wanted to expose the public to those artists.
The Stone Quarry Hill Art Park, they invited me to come and take a look around in the early 90s, and we worked, found a site in the back along one of their paths. We managed to get one of the local willow farms that were kind of organized by Syracuse University to grow willow in that area. We got those folks to bring us tons of big truckloads of willow. We found an area that had lots of little trees that were growing in a kind of a configuration, and the idea was to build something that you could look under, more or less a forest curtain that ran from tree to tree and then made an enclosure. It used to be that sculpture was seen as being permanent. You could buy and sell it and gain from it over its lifetime. My work has sprung into places, unlikely places. Often that means that they can't really stay there. Exteriorly, you know, the work lasts about 2 good years. And the inside, like the one that's sitting behind me here at the Gibbs Museum in Charleston, South Carolina, this work could last forever because it's an interior piece. But oftentimes, even that is slated for removal at a certain time. The people want their space back. Many of the conventions that you'd use with a pencil on a piece of paper, that is, series of tapered lines, are ways that you can work to enliven these surfaces and make them more interesting. So all of that work is reactionary, just like if you had a painting that you were doing, you're reading into the color scheme, into the drawing, and then you're trying to react to it and come up with an absolute epitomization of what it is you're trying to gain. I always think that a good sculpture is one that starts out at least by eliciting lots of personal associations with the viewer. And the material itself and the evocative smaller forms do make a piece that is compelling and causes people to run over to it.
This piece is called Stacks. It's 11 years old now. And it sort of evolved out of my interest in evolution from nature. So I started with a series of roots and logs and trunk that gradually evolved into shelves and books and more finished pieces. The final is lumber with real books on the shelves. But that's only part of it. Part of it is, where do we get our books and our paper and our knowledge? And the whole history of civilization comes out of the natural world. As this piece now looks, it's again 11 years old. It's decaying and deteriorating and going back to nature, and it will become something else. The molecules will grow new plants, or maybe, who knows, made into what else at a later time. So it's I'm fascinated with this relationship of us as just a piece of the universe, and a temporary piece.
I'm an artist and I'm based in Oakland, California, and one of my projects is a project called Snow Drawings, where I draw these big designs into snow surfaces, into landscapes that are covered with snow by walking with snowshoes. And this is a project that is participatory, meaning it involves communities who help me do this. So I guide them in the sense that I give them an introduction with a pattern system that they will work with. And it is usually based on spiral forms, simply because that is easy to do, to walk a spiral from inside out, and then go to the next and walk it again from inside out. And almost everyone can do that, even if they have never worn snowshoes on their feet before. It's a form that's sort of intrinsic in us because we are used to that. It's a natural form that occurs in nature a lot. Even our galaxy is actually a spiral. This project, it's not super overtly environmental, but hopefully people, through participating in this and through getting this nature experience, that they connect more to the natural world and kind of develop a closer relationship to it.
You put something out in the landscape, some kind of human artifact, and it starts to be juxtaposed against natural elements. It creates a relationship. It makes a disturbance, which is not a negative thing. It starts to set up some kind of dialogue.
I think that is one of the jobs of art in culture is to raise questions that probably don't have answers, or certainly not immediate answers.
It draws attention. Landscape can blend into the background, and we often forget how magnificent a view is until we put something that obstructs that view. We forget how important it is to have open space for habitat and diversity. We forget how important it is to see the night sky, to see the stars. And art focuses our attention. It says, wow, you can put a huge piece of sculpture in the landscape and it's still small. That's that feeling you get when you're at the art park.
Art and nature go together, and they're there not necessarily to glorify art, but for people to come and watch, to observe, to think about, to sit and meditate about. So if you want solace, if you want a place to be quiet and to appreciate nature, come up here.
There's a spirit here at the art park, and I think a lot of that comes from Dorothy.
Dorothy Riester, who's just an inspiration to all of us about what you can do with your talent, what you can make out of your life, what you can contribute to your community, and how to grow old gracefully.
Dorothy is a creative spirit. Her mind is always going, her hands are always working, and art has given her purpose in life.
I think of Dorothy as a really positive force, a very positive creative force. You know, she never sort of accepts what is delivered. She's always playing around with how it could be. And that clearly entertains her. You know, it really keeps her thinking.
It was really interesting to see how a person had kind of lived their aesthetic throughout their life and were able to continue their legacy by asking other artists to come and work there.
She was always welcoming and wanted to share what she had up here with the people of the community. If you look at her studio, you notice it's glass on both sides. And to me, that meant she wanted not only the light to work with, but she wanted people to be able to look in and see what she was doing.
Her vision has always been to create a place for art, but also for people and for nature.
How the art park got started, it comes from a broader interest and involvement of Dorothy, landscape planning and preservation and conservation in the Cazenovia area. Dorothy and a number of other people like Faith Knapp and others had been involved back in the early 80s with really a landmark demonstration project for rural preservation. And our school, ESF, Landscape Architecture, was involved in that and did the mapping.
Well, I have put a conservation easement on it, that they have to keep the land as it is. They can't sell it all. It must remain. So I think that's the biggest legacy. And then the artworks, I think that's something that has to be fluid. You have to be able to get new ones and all, but the land has to stay. And there can't be any modification of the land, and that is legally binding.
Dorothy has, in effect, reassembled the old farmstead here. Over the years, it had been subdivided and sold off, and Dorothy has actually gone through a very patient process of acquiring some of the parcels that used to be part of the old farmstead. So she really, in a way, put the landscape back together again, which is an interesting process. So Dorothy is great for all of her work, her sculptures. I think one of her biggest projects has been this landscape, this land, and in lots of levels. And just the ownership, the planning in terms of easements to maintain certain qualities, certain views, the open spaces, and then just setting up the whole program for the art park.
They understood that they purchased a piece of property that the community loved and cherished. And they didn't want to take that away. They wanted to give it back. In a way, they wanted to enhance it. And I think the art park became a strategy for giving the landscape back.
She set up a not-for-profit organization and gave us Stone Quarry Hill Art Park, all 100+ acres, as a gift.
Dorothea, Doris and Theos. It means gift of God. Doros is gift and Dios is God. Dorothea.
My sense would be she was a very precocious child. She had an interest in nature and the outdoors from a very young age. And she has, over the years, told many people the stories of how she would like to go exploring in the areas around where they lived. And she would often tell her mother in the morning that, "Mother, today I'm going to run away from home." And her mother would pack a lunch and say, "That's fine, have a wonderful time, be home at 5. That was an opportunity that Dorothy had, and she hung out in the woods and she looked at nature and she collected things and just had a wonderful time and then returned home about on time.
Dorothy's art reveals that she's really comfortable in the physical world. And that no challenge, no material challenge was really beyond her. Which is really phenomenal, considering that she was a woman making sculpture, early in the 1900s, really, when there were not that many women making sculpture.
She became an artist at a time when outdoor sculpture was generally realistic, statues of people, and she got into using machinery and tools such as welding and steel that was not very commonly used at the time, even with men sculptors. So she was a leader in bringing that kind of sculpture to the Carnegie Institute, which was, before that, fairly traditional.
I majored in sculpture at Carnegie College of Fine Arts in Pittsburgh. And it was absolutely nothing at all but life modeling, nothing. But in the studio next to the sculpture studio, Fred Clater had his class doing wonderful things in metal and bending. It was just the beginning of the Bauhaus, and people were feeling free. So I asked if I could be in his class. He said, certainly. And I said, I suppose I'll still work in clay. And this piece is one I did. And I did another one, and he fired them in his ceramic kiln. And from then on, I still did portrait heads. I used to do that to make a living. But who wants a life-size nude in their living room?
First of all, in upstate New York, there's not a huge market for art. And so for a woman at that time to actually be rewarded commissions says a lot about Dorothy, about her abilities and about how smart she was.
She was a successful sculptor, maybe didn't make a lot of money at it, but a successful sculptor as a young woman, and an inspiration, I think, to not only women artists, but to any area artists who are trying to take what's in their heart and the skills that they have in their hands and bring it to the public.
My name is Kiki Shulo. I'm here doing a fellowship residency at Stone Quarry. When I first came to the art park, probably 10 years ago, I was immediately drawn to the house. And I wanted to look in the windows of the house and just see every detail of the furniture and fireplace. I wanted to know how it was built and taking apart visually in my mind. So I thought, how can I get here? How can I be a part of this? I'm hoping to organize her work so that it can be better preserved and presented to the public. I would also hope to create an installation with her work in a creative way that it kind of captures the spirit of her home and her style and puts her work in the heart of her home, which is basically a window display of Dorothy. So I want to have some fun with her sculptures and bring the space alive with her sculptures.
My favorite stories are about the house and what her and Bob, all the adventures they went through building the house, and what a labor of love it was.
She and Bob created this house. They designed it. It was very avant-garde for the 60s. Not quite Frank Lloyd Wright, but very avant-garde. And if you go inside, it's a work of art. So there are walls that she created that are sculptures. The fireplace is just gorgeous. The whole thing that she could, in her mind, envision something that was going to be at a later date. For those of us who have trouble planning for tomorrow, that's a great inspiration.
I think Bob was much less focused on art. I think he enjoyed the natural environment of their home on the hilltop. He was incredibly supportive of her and would, as an engineer, if there was something that she needed rigged, he would do that.
He was very quietly present and looking out for Dorothy, even though she didn't need it always.
We met in detention hall in 10th grade, and we were just friends all of our life. We traveled twice around the world. Everywhere. He thought I was pretty funny. I thought he was pretty smart.
He was sort of a solid presence here, the bedrock of the place, I'd say. And I think Dorothy's sculpture of the person with his hands on his hips, looking out over the land, that's Bob, and I think that's how I picture him and think of him, supporting and enjoying all that was being created here.
The old Syracuse Hotel used to be very nice, and that's where Glenn Miller played, and Bob and I would go and dance. Oh, it was nice. He was a terrible dancer, might say.
When Dorothy and Bob Riester relocated to Syracuse from the Pittsburgh area, Bob was working for Carrier Corporation. Dorothy found a remnant strip of townhouses on North Townsend Street. Those were right around the corner from what was then the Everson Museum in an old mansion on James Street. Dorothy enjoyed the proximity of access to the Everson and the art that was displayed and the people who were connected with it. She and Bob became involved with the Everson over the years and were involved with the board of directors around the time that the current Everson was developed. This Everson Museum is the first museum structure designed by I.M. Pei, and Dorothy and Bob were on board at the time that decision was made.
We advertised for sculptors, and I knew about him, but I never met him. We all were sitting around the table, and I think there were 10 of us on the board. And right next to me, right here, was I.M. Pei, and he said, I really want to do that. And then he decided to make it of concrete, but he had to get special aggregate so that it wouldn't be dead. And we looked everywhere for it, and we found it up along Lake Michigan, I think. Little bits of red granite in it, and we got tons of that. And then what he did, he bush hammered. If you looked at the outside of the Everson, it's all bush hammered this way to give it a different texture.
I think what Pei offered was a new vision. I would say that would be very consistent with Dorothy's sense of vision and how we can present ideas physically.
As you cross from gallery to gallery, he liked it open so that you had a different feeling of space when you would go into the gallery, rather than just more rooms, more rooms, more rooms. In a way, you're working and you're creating as you look around, find your balance in your space. He was very good. This little fellow will be coming right out of the top. There. That's how it's going to end.
Dorothy's artwork is very much about her hands and what she can do with materials. But she also has an incredibly fine eye for design. What we often end up seeing is a very clever and facile engagement with materials that other people would find very tricky to work with.
A lot of people haven't seen these studies and these maquettes. There are all kinds of materials and all kinds of processes. And so it's fascinating as an artist to see the amount of work that Dorothy first produced. It seems that she was on a kick from time to time. From one shape will turn into a whole series of shapes, and then eventually you can see the process of how it becomes a final sculpture.
Well, I'm at Nottingham. I had a bad fall, so they decided, because I'm 100 years old. And I have scraps of wood, and I'm gluing them together. And there's a couple pieces here in metal, just like it. And it's going up and up and up. And it's a lot of fun to do. because I think I can make sculpture out of anything.
If you go to visit her, that's what you see. You see how she's saved her orange peels, how she's saved toilet paper rolls, how she's saved little blocks of wood, all with the intent that she can turn them into small sculptures, little totems. You know, her apartment is filled with these remarkable little sculptures that she's making constantly.
My dining room table now is my workshop, and there's wonderful glue now called Tybon, and I'm making little constructions, and I'm enjoying it very much.
I asked Dorothy what kind of glue she uses, and she said Tybon, and Tybon is the glue to use. It's like the only glue you ever need.
She's always creating these wonderful things out of sticks or boxes and glue and spray painting them.
She said, there's this wonderful new glue, Tight Bond. It glues anything. You can glue anything with this.
Adhesives. She's amazing with adhesives. I think one of the most remarkable things about Dorothy living in an assisted living situation, and yet every day is about creativity. Every day is about making art. That's it.
For people like myself who don't have artistic ability, it's sort of like a hero, or a heroine who you love to be around. So I just love to go over and visit her. She's always so welcoming. We always have chats about interesting things. And I think it's a role model for me. I'm trying to think, boy, I really want to be like Dorothy as I get older.
I think Dorothy's legacy is sharing a sense of vision. It's there, you just need to see it.
When I just think of Dorothy, I feel inspired to persevere optimistically, to keep going, engaging with the world, moving ahead step by step.
She's left a real legacy, and I'm sure that they'll have some way of moving the nature of the art park along and getting a lot of other artists opportunities to come and work.
How do you want people to most remember and think about your work?
I never thought about that. If people want to remember it, they can. If they don't, doesn't matter. My pleasure was in creating it. I really, really enjoyed it. And then after it's done, it's done. All I can say is that I'm so delighted, so pleased with our director and our board of director and all our friends who are keeping the park the way it is. And I think as long as people love it and take care of it, it will always be here. And as we're losing, you can see as you look almost any direction, house. There's hardly any place now where children can run through a field the way I used to. Can you still run through a field freely? Pick a daisy when you feel like it? You should be able to do that. And that's what I feel about this. It's going to be one little sanctuary, so to speak, one special piece of land. That's it.
I think Dorothy's most proud of the art park. She gave everything for this place. It's her passion. And what a great opportunity as an artist to be able to create something that people will enjoy for hundreds of years into the future. The art park will be around. And it's all because of Dorothy.